It was a good game in the first half. We got a little bit of foul trouble, but then they punched us in the mouth to start the second half, and we weren't able to respond to it the way I would have liked.
The men's team suffered its worst defeat in the Adam Fisher era, an 18-point rout against North Texas, shooting a season-low 30% from the field.
But there's better news on the women's side, a milestone. Women's head coach Diane Richardson picked up her 100th career win over break. We'll take a look.
I'm Sam Covone alongside Kylie O'Connor. Coming up, I'll be taking you through the current American Athletic Conference standings for the men and women.
And we will update you on all that you missed over break with both the men and women in our season recap.
Courts in Session is live for the first time in 2024.
And it starts right now.
Hello and welcome to the first edition of Courts in Session in 2024. I'm Jake Gabel, joined by my new co-anchor, Hayden Bandel.
This may be our first show, but both basketball seasons are well underway, and we'll get you all caught up with everything from both squads. We'll start with the men who are at North Texas on Saturday. The first of two games in the Lone Star State for the Owls. Jason Edwards led all scorers with 16 points. Give him 3 right here for his first bucket of the game. Temple's offense struggled throughout the entirety of the matchup, scoring a season-low 51 points. The Owls showed good ball movement on this play as Hayden Miller is able to drive and find Jalil White on the baseline for 2 of his 12 points. Miller able to connect on his second, but also last field goal of the game to cut the lead to 5. Then it's Jason Edwards again, a top 5 leading scorer in the conference, blowing right by Mateo Piccarelli, forcing Adam Fisher to call a timeout. Into the second half, following an offensive rebound, it's Edwards finding Aaron Scott wide open in the corner, who dropped 15 points. Late in the second half, with the game out of reach for the Owls, Edwards is putting on a playmaking clinic, finding Robert Allen. Edwards matched a career high with 3 assists, guiding the Mean Green to a 69-51 blowout over Adam Fisher's squad. The Owls were led by Jordan Riley in the points department with 13. Hayden Miller had 12 points, but he has really struggled from shooting beyond the arc, going 0 for 6 against the Mean Green and 4 for his last 28 in the last 5 games. The Owls didn't get any help off the bench either, tallying just 8 bench points. The Mean Green had 4 players in double figures. One of them was Robert Allen. The Ole Miss transfer had a season-high 11 points off the bench.
Going back in time, a few days before the North Texas game, at home against ECU. Early in the game, Ezra Asar spins to the left for 2. Jordan Riley with the ball up top for Temple, drives through the ECU defense and floats up for the finish. Temple leads 15-9 early. 6:40 left in the first half. RJ Felton gets it in the lane for 2. Next possession, Temple responds. Quante Berry to Shane Dezzoni for 3. Temple leads 27-21. ECU starts to turn things around, up by 2 at half, and then Asar with the slam. Steve Settle gets trapped in the corner and gets the baseline layup to go, but the Owls still trail by 7 with 10 minutes to go. Shot clock running down for the Pirates. Brandon Johnson, pump fake and 3-pointer is good with 1 second left on the shot clock. ECU never looks back after taking the lead at half. Ezra Asar gets the pass inside and finishes. He scored 18 points as ECU wins this one 73-62. Temple led for the majority of the first half, but never led by more than 6. And once ECU moved out in front, Temple wasn't able to answer. Asar got 18 points and 6 boards, while Felton led all scorers with 20 points on extremely efficient shooting, 8 of 10. Riley led the Owls with 15 points in only 25 minutes. Dezzoni added 11 points in just 21 minutes. Jalil White came off the bench and had 13 points and led the team in rebounds with 7. The Owls shot just 30% from the field in the loss. After the loss, Coach Fisher talked about how the team can bounce back.
So it's the beauty of this league, right? You get ready to come back, practice Thursday, Friday, got to go do it again Saturday. And we got to stay out on the road and do it again Tuesday. So we've got to learn from this, get better from it, and then hopefully see those improvements on Saturday. The biggest thing we encourage is stay together. Stay together during the good and the bad. Because you can see some nights you're not going to have it, so you need someone to pick you up, right? So that's just something we talk about a lot, staying together.
Joining us now is Courts in Session beat reporter Sam Covone to talk more about the men's team. Thanks for joining us, Sam.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, guys, I'm going to start us off. Over the last 2 games, Jordan Riley has been Temple's leading scorer, and it's no discredit to Riley, but in his 2 seasons at Georgetown, he averaged less than 5 points per game. And if Temple wants to win, especially in the American, that is something that just cannot happen. It's no discredit to Riley, but Temple needs other scores to pick up.
Yeah, their usual leading scorer, Heiser Miller, has been struggling as of late. He averages 16 points per game on the season, but he's only been averaging 7 points per game these last 2 games, and the shooting numbers have been bad. He's taken 19 shots and only made 3, and then from downtown, he's taken 10 threes, but hasn't made a single one in the past 2 games.
Yeah, and Jake, just to add to that, his shooting slump is also making him struggle with just his playmaking abilities. The last 2 games, his assist-to-turnover ratio is just 1. The first 2 conference games, it was over 2.
Now, I agree that this is a struggling team, but they have come a long way. We can't be so negative, especially in this rebuilding phase. Now, Jaleel White has been out with a finger injury, so he's missed a lot of time. But like you said, Hayden, Jordan Riley cannot be the leading scorer. Matteo Piccarelli and Sam Hoffman have both stepped up. They're the only newcomers to play in all 17 games this season. They have a combined 15 points each per game, so it's not as bad as it seems, but it can definitely be better. We just need to cut them a little slack.
Well, there's a lot to catch you up on if you missed out on the men's team over break. Last year's men's team saw the highest of highs and the lowest of lows in a disappointing 16-16 season, beating number 17 Villanova and number 1 ranked Houston. This team looked like it could finally bring Temple back to the tournament.
But with bad losses against Wagner and Maryland Eastern Shore, along with a first-round exit in the AAC tournament, this result wasn't enough to save Aaron McKee's job, leading to an offseason with coaching changes, a new roster, and a bumpy start to the 2023-2024 season.
Season number 1 for Adam Fisher, about 6 months after leaving Happy Valley to take over his first head coaching job.
With a first-time head coach, players had a choice to make: stay at Temple and take a chance on Fisher, or enter the transfer portal. Out of 8 key players from last season's team, Jaleel White and Hayser Miller were the only 2 that decided to stay on North Broad.
Everybody had a chance to leave. The guys that stayed, they bleed cherry and whites.
As for those who left, 5 of the 6 top scorers transferred, including Damian Dunn to Houston and Caliph Battle to Arkansas.
This left holes for new players to fill. 5 players transferred in, along with the arrival of freshman guard Zion Stanford.
In Fisher's debut, Temple beat Maryland Eastern Shore 85-65.
I think I probably had to score a little bit more than last year, but with the group that we got, I think we're going to have a good balance of scoring.
This was part of a 3-game win streak to start the year, something that had not been done by a Temple head coach in 50 years. The Owls then lost 2 games, but came back in a huge triple overtime victory against LaSalle, defeating the Explorers 106-99, which sent the Owls to the Big 5 championship.
For the first time ever, the Big 5 Classic was played at the Wells Fargo Center, but the Owls fell to St. Joe's 74-65. While Temple didn't walk away with the championship, there was still optimism surrounding this team.
That optimism quickly diminished as the Owls took a trip to Hawaii for the Diamond Head Classic. Temple lost 2 of the 3 games. The one win came versus Portland by 1 point, which prevented the Owls from finishing in last place.
Starting conference play, the Owls split their first 2 games, losing to South Florida on the road and coming back home to beat Wichita State, Temple's first home game in a month.
That brings us to mid-January, 8-9 and 1-3 in conference. As you might expect, with a rebuilding program, there have been some bright spots, but still many questions that need to be answered.
Let's take a look at the stats so far for Temple and how they compare to the rest of the American Athletic Conference. 71 points per game doesn't sound too bad, but it lands Temple towards the bottom of the conference. The men rank last in field goal and three-point percentages as well. On the bright side, the Owls hold on to the ball, second fewest turnovers per game among the 14 teams. It's time to take a break. This gives us a chance to switch gears to the women's side of our bracket.
Diane Richardson has her team in the top half of the AAC standings. We will recap this season when the date returns to courts in session. The women's squad was on the road Tuesday against Wichita State, looking to extend its road win streak. How about this? Inez Piper knocks down a tray with some confidence. Then later in the first, freshman guard Talise Blow with two of her team leading 10 points for the Shockers. Kendall Currens connects from deep to put the Owls up 17. Wichita State trying to answer back, and Treasure Drobe drives in, stops, spins, and hits. Miscommunication in the second half for the Shockers leads to a turnover, and it's Aaliyah Nelson with the touchdown pass to Demi Washington, part of 6 consecutive points. Later, it's Blow dropping a dime inside to Jayla Murray. To the fourth, Terriana Gary connects from long range. Then later again, it is Blow. She forces one up, and it is no good, but Jayla Murray is there to wipe the deck, but it's all cosmetic at that point as Temple gets the 72-49 win. The game marked the first time in 7 seasons the Owls kept their opponents under 50 points in back-to-back games. On the offensive side, Demi Washington posted a career-high 20 points. Terriana Gary had her first career double-double with 10 points and a career-high 11 rebounds. Wichita State struggled to get points on the board, shooting 1 of 19 from three-point range. Talise Blow was the Shockers' only double-digit scorer with 10.
The win against the Shockers clinched Diane Richardson's 100th career win as a head coach, and the team decided to surprise her in the locker room after the victory. Prior to Temple, Richardson was the head coach at Towson University for 5 years, winning 80 games. Towson made its first ever NCAA tournament appearance under Richardson. This milestone victory makes Richardson one of 5 coaches in Temple program history to reach triple digits in the win column. The Owls have had 21 head coaches since the program started in 1923. They include some great ones, such as 2-time national champion with South Carolina, Dawn Staley. Staley went 172-80 at Temple, the best record in Temple history. Another name on the list, Tanya Cardoza, the coach Temple replaced in favor of Richardson.
It was a great win. Everybody played and everybody played well. We're excited about our trip out to the Midwest. I'm just excited about urgency, the sense of urgency before the game. And I wanted them to stay on that urgency, the importance of not waiting to react, but to go ahead and do what we needed to do. And
Temple returning home after 2 straight wins on the road. Taking on the Memphis Tigers, Aaliyah Nelson slides to the right for the 3. Nelson scores the first 5 points for the Owls. A little later in the first quarter, Gary pump and the mid-range jumper. Temple leads 9-4. Now Memphis with it in the second quarter. Pass inside to Shelby Brown for the hook shot. Tigers again. This time Madison Griggs with the foul line make. Tigers lead 23-16 in a low-scoring first half. Third quarter, Memphis' Alasia Smith working inside finally gets the pass and the layup. Owls trailing, and Gary hits the 3. Owls coming back down by 4 at the end of the third. Fourth quarter, now Kiari Kane, the 3 at the shot clock buzzer. Tigers up 6 with 4:30 to go. Owls trying to come back. Nelson on fire from deep, drains it. Temple down 2 now. No timeouts. Tristan Taylor has to get the shot up and just misses at the buzzer. The comeback falls just short. Owls lose 59-57. So we've seen the last few games, so let's bring in Courts in Session beat reporter Kylie O'Connor to discuss the women's team with us. Hey Kylie, start us off.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on. I want to talk about the women and their turnovers in the last 2 games. First, in their game against Wichita State, they had 25 turnovers, and Inez Piper had 6 of them, which is a bit higher for her than usual. Then they had 22 turnovers against Memphis, and Aaliyah Nelson also had 6 of those. The Owls need to focus on ball security as they seem to be trending upward in the turnover department in the last week or 2.
I'm going to take it more on a positive note. The defense has been really good the last couple of games for Temple. Over the last 3 games, Temple is allowing just 52 points per game. They didn't get the win against Memphis, but their defense did keep them in that game. While the offense wasn't as good, they did have a good defensive showing.
I agree with Jake in that defensive point. In their last 3 of 4 games, they've allowed 2 or fewer 3-pointers, including just 1 in each of the last 2 games. So they're really forcing teams to get down low, and it's causing a lot of problems, and they're getting a lot of turnovers off of that, and they're also capitalizing from those turnovers. In those last 4 games, they have over 17 points per game on turnover points, which is over 30% of their points in that margin.
Following an 11-18 season that saw 4 key players suspended or kicked off the team, head coach Diane Richardson's first season, the Owls have added some new faces and brought back some old ones.
Unlike last season, where the Owl starters were different almost every game, this season has been consistent. In 17 games, the Owls have relied on the same starting lineup 14 times, but are still struggling to find a rhythm.
The Temple women's basketball season has been filled with some inconsistency. The Owls currently stand at 9-8 and 3-2 in conference play, good enough for a 5th-place tie in the revamped American Athletic Conference. One thing the Owls have figured out this season is the importance of their defense.
We just need to continue with our defensive effort, and we want that to be our identity. Defense, and I think if we are on defense or on point like we've been playing, that we're going to be okay.
Some of that can be attributed to some newcomers who are providing the Owls with depth. A few key additions to the team, including freshmen Jalissa Molina and Tristan Taylor. Both are seeing over 14 minutes of game action.
Demi Washington transferred to North Broad from Vanderbilt. She played every single game for Vandy in each of the last 2 seasons. Kendall Kearns followed Diane Richardson from the CAA after being at Northeastern. She suited up for the first time in cherry and white this year after missing all of last season with a torn ACL.
Feeling great, still getting into it, but love playing with my team. They're really supportive.
While defense has been good most of the year with this crew, turnovers are a different story. These last 2 games, the women have recorded the highest number of turnovers all season. 25 turnovers in a win over Wichita State, 22 turnovers on Sunday in a loss against Memphis.
Obviously, when you have 22 turnovers, a lot of that is not taking care of the ball.
Aaliyah Nelson now sits at 1,495 career points, earning 19 of them at their game against Memphis on Sunday.
And Aaliyah's play is showing up on the team stat sheet. Temple has seen a lot of improvement from last year, more than halfway through the season, putting up 70 points per game and giving up 62. The Owls are shooting at a 39% clip from the field and are averaging the least number of turnovers in the conference. We're coming up on another break, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll talk to Owl Scoop reporter Johnny Zawizlak.
Don't go anywhere. Courts in Session will be back in 90 seconds. Welcome back to Courts in Session. You've heard us give our thoughts on the team so far. We thought it would be a good idea to bring on an outside voice who also covers the team.
Owl Scoop reporter and the Temple News assistant sports editor Johnny Zawizlak joins us to talk Temple hoops. Thanks for coming on, Johnny.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Johnny, it's the first season for Adam Fisher. How would you assess the first-year head coach so far?
You know, it's a rebuild year for Temple. You just got to say it how it is. He's gotten a lot out of this team with the talent that is there. You know, there are a lot of people that say, oh, how can he get more out of the guys that are there? I think the talent just is not there for Temple right now. And I think, though, although it is coming, he's done a lot on the recruiting trail. He's gotten Dylan Battie, he's down in Texas, and Aiden Tobiason in Delaware. They're going to be 2 great players for Temple in the future.
Switching over to the women's side, Johnny, they have a lot of offensive rebounds per game, tied for 4th in the nation, but they're also struggling on getting second chance points, just 13 second chance points per game. What do you think has to be done in order for Temple to change that?
You mentioned it. They've been great on getting those second chances and those second chance opportunities, but they have not been able to capitalize, and a lot of that has been touch around the rim. They haven't, their forwards especially, Rain Tucker, freshman Jalissa Molina, and Enos Piper, while she's taken a step forward, she has not been able to capitalize on those second chance opportunities. And I think a lot of that is if they're having trouble with their touch around the rim, they have to get it back out, set things back up, and take advantage of that new shot clock.
Now, the last question for you, Johnny. Back to the men. The freshman Zion Stanford started off the season looking like one of the better players on this team. As of lately, he hasn't played as much. Can you give us any updates?
Yeah, with Zion, he got injured right before the Hawaii Classic, and he missed a lot of practice time. And you got to remember, he's a freshman. And when he's a freshman, when you miss a lot of practice time, sometimes you'll take a step back. And Adam Fisher has mentioned that he hasn't really been showing it in practice. And while he's gotten minutes, his minutes have gone up in the last couple games. I think, he has to show it in practice if he wants to warrant more minutes and, get more opportunities to score and be that player that he was in the beginning of the season.
Johnny, thanks for coming by.
Oh, no, thank you for having me.
Well, we're coming up on another break, but don't go anywhere.
When we come back, Sam Covone will get us caught up when we go around the American. It's a crowded field on the men's and women's side. Courts in session will be back in 90 seconds. Welcome back. It's time to take a ride around the AAC roller coaster. 14 teams on both the men's and women's side.
Let's bring back our beat reporter, Sam Covone, with a look at the standings on both sides. Hey, Sam.
Thanks, guys. I know we are just getting back from break, but March Madness is only 8 weeks away. It'll be here before we know it. On the men's side of things, Memphis is leading the charge, going 4-0 in conference play. North Texas is also on an undefeated streak in its 3 games. Florida Atlantic and Charlotte have a record of 3-1, and SMU, South Florida, and UAB are sitting at 2-1. Tulsa is currently at the bottom of the standings, going 0-4 so far this season in the AAC. This week, my standout team is Florida Atlantic, that has an overall record of 13-4. The team has already beat 12th-ranked Arizona, who at the time was ranked 4th. FAU is nationally ranked 23rd, and with the way those Southern Owls are playing, could possibly end up at the top of their new conference. Now, moving to the women's standings, UAB and Charlotte are leading the conference with a 4-1 record. 4 teams, including Tulsa, South Florida, UTSA, and Temple, all sit at 3-2 so far this season. Tulane is at 1-3, while Memphis and Wichita State have a record of 1-4. Florida Atlantic is looking up from the bottom with its 0-5 record. Now, for the women, the team that has stood out so far is North Texas. The Mean Green has only lost 3 away games and are on a 3-game win streak with their overall record at 13-3. Already, this is an improvement from last year's record. The Mean Green are a team to look out for in the AAC this season. Conference play is sure to heat up with March Madness right around the corner. Late January and February are always exciting. That's all I have for show number 1. Jake and Hayden, back to you.
That is all we have for this edition of Courts in Session, but we'll be back next week to cover both the men's and the women's.